And my name is Elise. I'm 34, and I feel like I'm walking through the ruins of a love used to believe was indestructible. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who had to explain past she thought was buried. But here I am, sitting alone on the edge of our bed, telling a story which wasn't mine, trying to make sense of something that started long before the videos resurfaced. Long before the look in Ethan's eyes shifted from warmth to suspicion. The videos weren't some dark secret. They weren't even new. They were from before Ethan and I had even met a few messy, blurry moments with Liam, his college friend. We were in our early 20s, reckless, half-drunk on youth and the feeling that we'd live forever. It was dumb. Impulsive. It didn't mean anything. I hadn't even thought about those videos in years until Ethan found them last week on an old hard drive while searching for our honeymoon photos. I still don't know what was worse, the silence that followed, or the way he looked at me, like was suddenly someone he couldn't trust. Someone dirty. Someone other. It wasn't always like this. Ethan used to touch me like was something delicate he couldn't believe was his. His fingertips would trace along my spine at night, like he was reading a love letter written in my skin. We used to laugh during sex, the good kind of laughter, soft and warm and tangled in sheets. I used to feel wanted. Now he kisses me like he's checking a box. I kissed him this morning before he left for work. Just a quick brush of lips, leaned in out of habit, and he let me. But it felt more like two strangers brushing past each other on the street. His eyes didn't close. Mine did, and I hated that. I still want to believe we're okay, but I can feel the fracture growing between us. Even before the videos, something had shifted. At night, we'd lie side by side but feel miles apart. Sometimes, I'd inch closer and place my hand on his chest, hoping to feel the rattle of his heartbeat, hoping it would slow when I touched him, the way it used to. He'd let me rest there, but he wouldn't reach for me anymore. The affection became passive. Routine. Mechanical. Like hugging your coat before heading into the cold. And sometimes, when we did have sex, it felt like we were reenacting something we used to enjoy, hoping muscle memory would carry the magic. It didn't. I used to be so in tune with him, not just his body, but his moods. I could sense when he was stressed, when he was holding something in, when he needed silence, or stupid joke or just to be held. But lately, I don't know how to reach him. Or maybe he doesn't want to be reached. I'm not sure anymore. And now, this past that came crashing into our present, has become the excuse, or maybe just the trigger, for everything we've refused to say out loud. He hasn't said he thinks cheated. But he acts like it did. Like I'm tainted. Like those old pixels on screen have rewritten everything he thought he knew about me. Ethan's paramedic. 12-hour shifts, broken bodies, the smell of blood and burnt metal still clinging to him when he gets home. He's seen the worst of people, their pain, their final moments, and I know he carries more than he'll ever say. That's part of what I loved about him. His strength. His tenderness beneath all that grit. But somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling safe in his silence. Tonight, he came home past midnight. His boots thudded heavily against the floorboards. I was half asleep on the couch with the knee low, but I sat up quickly when I heard him. Part of me hoped he'd come over, sink down beside me, let his head fall against my shoulder like he used to after hard days. Instead, he walked straight into the kitchen, didn't even say my name. I followed him in. He was grabbing a beer, already halfway through it. At the time, leaned against the doorframe. "How was your shift?" I asked softly. He shrugged, barely looking at me. "Messy." That was it, just one word. No follow-up, no warmth. I nodded, pretending it didn't sting. Then, out of nowhere, he walked toward me, put the bottle down, and slid his hands around my waist. He kissed me hard. Deep. His fingers gripped in my hips like he was trying to remind us both that we were still together, still something. But didn't melt into him. I couldn't. It felt like he was using my body to forget something. Maybe the accident he witnessed earlier. Maybe those videos. Maybe the version of me he can't unsee now. I pulled back gently. Ethan, I whispered. What? His voice was already defensive, as if bracing for rejection. I don't want to be a landing pad after a long shift. I want to talk to you. I want you to see me. His jaw clenched. I do see you. This is me trying. I stepped back, creating just a sliver of space. Trying isn't touching me when I'm not ready. It's asking why I'm pulling away. It's not pretending everything's fine just because your hands are on my body. His face twisted into something unreadable. You think I'm pretending, he said, low and sharp. I think you're avoiding, I said, voice tight. Avoiding the conversation we should have had the moment you saw those videos. Or the moment you stopped wanting to kiss me without something underneath it. He stepped back like I'd slap him. I don't want to fight. I don't either, I said. I want to be close. But not just physically, Ethan. I need to feel like we're still emotionally in the same room. He shook his head, bitter. You say that like I'm the only thinking. Or maybe this is the part where the unraveling becomes undeniable. But if he's waiting for me to fall apart, he should know something. I already am quietly in pieces. Alone, beside the man I still love, who no longer looks at me the same way. It was Saturday morning. I was in the kitchen, making pancakes because it was the one thing I knew Ethan couldn't resist, blueberries, extra cinnamon, just the way he liked them. I thought maybe this small act could do something between us. He walked in wearing those soft gray sweatpants, rubbing sleep from his eyes, hair messy in the way used to find sexy. I offered a smile, small and hopeful, but it felt fragile coming out of me. Smells amazing, he said, coming up behind me and slipping his arms around my waist. I tensed before I could stop myself. He didn't let go. Instead, he pressed a kiss to the back of her neck, slow and lingering. Then another. And another. His hands moved lower, one gliding over my hip, the other dipping beneath the hem of her shirt. And just stood there, spatula in hand, completely frozen. I wanted to respond. I wanted to lean into him, to feel something, desire, comfort, connection, anything. But all I felt was pressure. Like I was supposed to want this. Like it was a test I had to pass to prove we were still okay. His mouth brushed my ear. God, you smell good, he whispered. And my throat tightened. Ethan, I said, gently reaching back to stop his hand. He paused. His fingers went still. What? He asked, not harshly, but with that edge. The one that said, here we go again. I'm not really in the mood right now. You never are lately. It wasn't even what he said. It was how he said it, flat, tired, like he wasn't even surprised. I turned to face him, and he let his hands fall away. The absence of them felt like an accusation. It's not that I don't want you, I said, trying to find the right words. It's that I feel like that's all you want from me lately. His eyebrows lifted, incredulous. What? That's not fair. I touch you because I miss you. Because I love you. I know, I said quickly. I know. It's just when we barely talk anymore, and then you come up behind me and start, gestured vaguely, it feels like skipping chapters in a book I'm still trying to read. He stepped back, jaw tightening. So now physical touch is a bad thing? No, I said, the frustration cracking through. It's just God, Ethan, do you even see me anymore? Or are you just trying to fix everything with your hands because you don't want to deal with how I actually feel? Silence fell between us, thick and heavy. The only sound was the faint hiss of the pancake batter on the pan. I can't win with you, he said finally. No matter what I do, it's wrong. That's not what I'm saying. He gave a bitter laugh. Then what are you saying? I didn't have an answer that would make sense. Not to him. Not even to myself. That night, we watched a movie on the couch. I sat close enough that our legs touched. He rested his hand on my thigh, thumb drawing circles. I let him. I didn't flinch but didn't melt either. When he leaned in to kiss me, I kissed him back. Softly. Politely. I focused on how dry and my lips felt. On the flicker of a scene on the knee behind him. On anything but the kiss. When he pulled away, smiling faintly like he thought maybe we were okay again, I offered a small smile too. It wasn't real. And in my head, the thought that had been haunting me for weeks came back like a siren. Does everything have to turn into sex? We were out to dinner at this Italian place Ethan used to take me to on our anniversaries. Red wine. Candles. See playlist of soft jazz humming just above the clinking of cutlery. He had made the reservation on his own, said he wanted us to reconnect. I appreciated the gesture. I really did. But I also felt like was wearing a mask. He looked so composed across the table. Polished. Like he'd decided tonight would be the night we got back to normal. The way he kept reaching for my hand, smiling at me like we were part of some picture-perfect memory, only made the air between us heavier. I really tried to be present. I let him talk about his shift. About a little boy who broke his arm but was more concerned about his crushed Lego set than the pain. I loved, lightly, at the right places. Drank enough wine too fast. But then he said it, just as he was twirling spaghetti onto his fork, like he was asking about the weather. So, are we ever going to talk about those videos? I froze. I hadn't thought he'd bring it up here. Not with couples laughing around us, waiters weaving between tables, and a candle flickering between us like it might catch fire. What do you want me to say? I asked carefully. I don't know. Something, he said, keeping his tone casual, but his jaw flexed. Like whether you'd sleep with him of all people. That was over 10 years ago, I said, lowering my voice. Before I even knew you. Yeah, but you knew him, Ethan replied, finally setting his fork down. You were with a friend, Elise. That's not just some random hookup. That's someone I still see at birthdays. Poker nights. And I didn't know I'd be dating you 10 years later when it happened, I snapped. Are you seriously punishing me for something I had no way of predicting? He leaned back, arms folded. I'm not punishing you. I'm just trying to understand how you can look me in the eye every day knowing he's seen you like that. Something in me cracked. I wasn't yours then, Ethan. Nilly's voice rose, sharper than meant it to, cutting through the clink of dinnerware around us. A couple nearby turned their heads. I felt my chest tighten, tears prickling behind my eyes. Lily, are you acting like cheated on you? The word hung between us. He stared at me, stunned. Hurt. And then started to cry. Not soft, elegant tears. No, this was messy. Sudden. A sob climbing up my throat before I could catch it and a napkin balled tightly in my fist. Lily's appetite completely gone. I felt like was unraveling in front of strangers and him, the man used to feel so safe with. I didn't do anything wrong, I whispered through the tears. But you look at me like it did. You touch me like you're trying to erase it, and I can't breathe inside this version of us anymore. Ethan didn't yell. He didn't storm out. He just sat there. Silent. His expression unreadable. When the server brought our check, he took it without a word, slid his card inside, and kept his eyes on the tablecloth the whole time. We drove home in silence. No music. No conversation. When we got inside, I went straight to the bathroom and locked the door. I sank to the floor, dress bunched around in my knees, still shaking. And all I could feel was this horrible, sticky mix of guilt and confusion. Really did I explode like that? Really now? Really did I feel ashamed for something that happened long before him? I looked at myself in the mirror, eyes red, mascara smudge, and whispered the question wasn't ready to face. The silence settled in like dust. You don't notice it at first. It's weightless. Invisible. But then you realize it's in every corner of the house, clinging to your clothes, woven into the sheets. It's been 12 days since that dinner. Ethan still sleeps beside me, but we don't touch. He sets his alarm 10 minutes earlier than he used to, probably so he doesn't have to make small talk while brushing his teeth. I make coffee and leave his mug on the counter like always, but he doesn't thank me anymore. I don't know if he forgets or if he's just stopped noticing. We've become polite strangers, two people sharing groceries and Wi-Fi, but not much else. I watch him sometimes when he's not looking. The way he stares blankly at the knee without really watching it. The way he rubs the back of his neck when he's thinking, the same gesture he used to do during arguments, back when we actually had words to throw at each other. Now we just have space. And I know he's hurting. I know this isn't just about the videos. It's about trust. Or maybe it's about the story he told himself about me, that clean slate, the version of Elise that existed only after him. And finding out that someone he knows had touched me, had seen me, maybe that shattered the illusion. He hasn't brought it up again. And maybe that's what hurts the most, that he's punishing me with silence, instead of truth. One night, he came home late. I was still awake, curled up on the far end of the couch with a blanket and a half-finished book in my lap. He walked past me without a word, shoulders slumped, eyes tired. I wanted to say something. Anything. How was work? Do you hate me? Do you miss me, even a little? But I stayed quiet. He sat down on the other end of the couch and turned on the news. Not even 5 minutes later, his head slowly dropped back against the cushions, and he fell asleep right there, mouth slightly open, one arm tucked over his chest like he was shielding himself in his dreams. And just sat there, watching him breathe. God, I missed him. I missed his laugh, the way he used to pull me into him without warning, the late-night whispered confessions when the lights were out and everything felt safe. I missed feeling like we were us. But I didn't know how to reach him now. Every path back felt mined with guilt, or shame, or something worse, apathy. Still, I knew he wasn't the villain in this story. He was a man trying to understand a version of me he hadn't signed up for. And maybe I hadn't given him enough space to feel what he needed to feel. Or maybe I had given him too much. I sat there for a long time that night, just listening to his quiet, heavy breathing and trying to remember when love stopped being warm. I thought about packing a bag, about calling in my sister, crashing at her place for a few days, giving us both some air. But when I stood up to move, my knees felt weak. My body didn't want to go. So I sat back down, gently pulled the blanket over both of us, and laid my head just a few inches from his shoulder, not touching, but close enough to feel the heat. And I made a decision. I wasn't walking away. Not yet. If we were going to fall apart, I needed to know I had done everything I could before letting go. Even if it meant learning how to speak to someone who no longer heard me. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when it happened. The weather had turned warm again, the kind of day that normally meant coffee runs and long walks with no destination. But we hadn't done that in weeks. Instead, we spent our days like shadows, occupying the same spaces, brushing past each other like strangers with history. I was folding laundry on the bed when Ethan stepped into the room, holding his phone in that tight way that told me something was on his mind. Elise, he said, voice low. I looked up. Yeh. He didn't sit. Just stood there, fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. I keep playing that night in my head. The dinner. What I said. What you said. I don't think I've ever felt so far from you. I swallowed, heart already in my throat. You were angry. I get it, eh? He shook his head. It wasn't just anger. It was disappointment. Shame. And jealousy, if I'm being honest. I didn't know how to process seeing you like that with him. It felt like someone reached into my past and rewrote it, eh? I nodded slowly. But it wasn't your past, Ethan. It was mine. He sat on the edge of the bed, finally, eyes trained on the floor. I think it turned it into something it wasn't because I've been scared of losing you. And finding those videos, it made me feel like didn't really know the woman built a life with. That maybe there were pieces of you never gave me. I sat beside him, close but not touching. There are pieces of me never had. Just like there are pieces of you I'll never fully understand. That doesn't mean I love you any less. He looked at me then, eyes softer, but still clouded. I know. But I think it needed to believe you were untouched before me. Perfect. Which is bullshit, I realize. But I built that idea of you in my head. I reached over and placed in my hand gently on his. You don't have to love the past to love the person it shaped. For a moment, he didn't speak. But he didn't pull away either. Then he said, I don't know if I can unsee it, Elise. That's what scares me. And there it was, the fracture neither of us wanted to name out loud. The thing hanging over us since the night he opened those files. I nodded, feeling the itch swell in my chest. I don't expect you to erase it, but I need you to stop punishing me for it. I need you to see me, not just what you saw on the screen. He blinked hard, and for the first time in weeks, he reached for me. His hand slid over mine, fingers trembling slightly. Not with passion, but with vulnerability. We sat in that quiet, holding on. Later that evening, we watched a movie in bed. He lay beside me, his hand resting lightly on my stomach like he used to, not possessive. Not trying. Just there. When the credits rolled, he turned toward me and kissed my forehead. Not in my lips. Not in my body. Just in my forehead. It was the most intimate thing he'd done in weeks. I didn't know if we were rebuilding or just softening the wreckage. But for the first time, I felt something shift between us. Not fully healed, but no longer bleeding. You know, I used to think love was about finding someone who saw you as perfect. Someone who looked at you and never questioned anything that came before. Like your past could be quietly buried under the weight of what you were building together. But that's not love. That's fantasy. Love, real love, is messier. It's learning how to stay when it hurts. It's deciding to see someone fully, even when what you find surprises or disappoints you. And maybe most of all, it's giving space for each other to be human. When Ethan found those videos, I didn't panic because I was ashamed of them. I panicked because I knew what they'd do to us. Not because I cheated. Not because I lied. But because I'd suddenly become more complicated in his eyes. Not his untouched memory. Not his soft beginning. I became real. And that scared him. For a while, I thought I had to convince him I was still worthy of love despite the past. I twisted myself up in guilt, tiptoed through our silence, tried to become easier to digest, smaller, simpler, quieter. But that wasn't love either. That was fear. Eventually, I stopped trying to fix his feelings. I started numbing mine. I told him the truth, that I missed him, that was hurting, that I didn't need to be forgiven for something I didn't do wrong. What needed, what craved, was to be understood. To be held without being rewritten. And for a while it worked. He softened. I softened. We met somewhere in the middle, beneath the wreckage of our expectations. We're still together, either way. Still learning how to be honest without fear. Some days are good. Some days we still fall silent over coffee. But we're trying. Trying to speak more than we assume. Trying to reach without needing to fix. Trying to love each other as we are, not as we were imagined. And as for me? I've learned that emotional intimacy doesn't grow in perfection. It grows in imperfection, in the brave, messy sharing of who we really are when we're not being watched. I used to think my body was the biggest gift could give someone. But now I know it's my story. And my truth. The vulnerable, embarrassing, joyful, contradictory truth of being a whole damn person. It took a then seeing the piece of early past to realize how much of myself I'd stopped offering in the present. Not sexually. But emotionally. Spiritually. Quietly. Sometimes, we pull away from touch not because we don't desire someone, but because we feel like they no longer see us. And sex without seeing each other, it can feel like a performance you didn't agree to, a script you never wrote. So if you're listening to this, wondering what it means that you flinch when he reaches for you, or Riley kisses have started to feel like obligations instead of invitations. Know this, you are not broken. You are becoming. You are shifting. You are waking up to what your heart really needs. And that's not a failure. That's a beginning. Love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet choice to stay in the room. To listen. To rely. And sometimes it's the courage to say, this is who I am, even if it scares you. And hoping the person you love has the strength to say, I still want you anyway. Dalawa.